I work in this site for many years. These varies are all life-sized like real soldiers. In 2025, scientists finally solved the Terracotta Army mystery. And it isn't good. What they discovered beneath the surface stunned the archaeological world and left even mainstream commentators like Jesse Waters asking, why is no one talking about this? For decades, the site in Huang was seen as a monument to ancient glory. But new findings have exposed a disturbing truth hidden in plain sight. Toxic elements, buried secrets, and an emperor's obsession with eternal control. This isn't just history. It's a warning. And once you hear what researchers uncovered, you'll never look at the terracotta warriors the same way again. The discovery that changed everything. In the spring of 1974, a group of farmers digging a well near Huang made a discovery that would shift the world's understanding of ancient China. At first, it looked like nothing more than broken pottery. But as officials investigated further, what emerged from the dusty earth was a scene unlike anything ever seen before. Rows upon rows of life-sized clay soldiers, all standing at attention, frozen in time for over 2,000 years. These figures weren't scattered fragments. They were warriors detailed down to the folds in their robes, the strands of their hair, and the intensity in their eyes. Some stood ready with crossbows. Others held swords or spears. All of them faced east as if still guarding the emperor they were created to protect. Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor to unify China under one rule. As archaeologists dug deeper, the scale became almost unbelievable. There were not dozens or hundreds of these figures. There were thousands. Infantry, archers, chariots, cavalry, even generals. Each one unique. The sheer ambition of it suggested a ruler obsessed with control, power, and life beyond death. This wasn't just a tomb. It was a military empire replicated underground. Soon it became clear that this was just one part of a much larger complex. Beneath the hills surrounding the site, ground-penetrating radar revealed an enormous necropolis stretching over 38 square miles. Somewhere at the center of it all was the unopened tomb of the emperor himself. According to ancient texts, that tomb was a marvel of engineering, said to contain palaces, rivers of mercury, and a ceiling embedded with pearls to mimic the night sky. And yet it remained untouched. Despite the technological advancements in archaeology, Chinese officials refused to open the emperor's tomb. On the surface, the reasoning seemed noble. A desire to preserve what remained until excavation techniques improved. But as time passed, questions began to rise. What were they really waiting for? What were they afraid of uncovering? In the decades that followed the discovery, teams of researchers and scientists carefully excavated different pits surrounding the tomb. What they found wasn't just artistry. It was precision. The statues were built with standardized molds, suggesting some form of ancient mass production. Their weapons, though buried for centuries, were still sharp with little to no rust. The bronze blades had a strange sheen to them, as though they had been chemically protected. This caught the attention of metallurgists who found that many of the weapons had traces of chromium, a substance rarely seen in use before the 20th century. How had artisans over 2,000 years ago discovered a method to coat bronze weapons in chromium to resist corrosion? The find baffled scientists and pushed many to wonder what other lost technologies the Qin dynasty had developed. Meanwhile, researchers measuring the soil composition around the tomb detected something even more disturbing. Abnormally high levels of mercury. It matched descriptions from ancient records that claimed the emperor's tomb was built with rivers and lakes of the toxic element designed to mimic the geography of China. But these weren't just symbolic metaphors. The levels detected were real and dangerously high. What was once seen as a display of honor began to feel more like a hidden agenda. What kind of man builds a fortress underground, fills it with warriors, and surrounds himself with poison? 50 years after its discovery, the Terracotta Army continues to be one of the most iconic and mysterious sites on Earth. But in 2025, scientists would find something buried deeper than clay. Something that could change how we see this marvel forever. Something that, as we'll see, might not be as glorious as it first appeared. Uncovering the untouched zones. Even after decades of research, the Terracotta Army continues to offer more questions than answers. The three main pits, pits 1, 2, and 3, only represent a fraction of what's believed to be hidden beneath the ground. The warriors, as impressive as they are just the outer defenses of a much larger, more complex tomb. At the center of it all lies the burial chamber of Huang, a place so shrouded in legend and danger that it remains completely sealed to this day. Most visitors to the site see the neatly arranged lines of infantrymen in Pit 1, where over 6,000 soldiers are positioned in battle-ready formation, but fewer people know about Pit 2, which was long considered more fragmented and difficult to interpret. That changed in 2024 when a series of new excavations led to a discovery that sent shockwaves through the archaeological community. A rare, high-ranking general figure, larger than the others, with ornate armor, a distinct top knot and posture that radiated command. This was not just another soldier. This was someone important. And he wasn't alone. Alongside the general were several armored officers and a small cavalry unit arranged in what appeared to be a coordinated tactical group. The layout wasn't random. It suggested strategic planning and mirrored the kind of hierarchy one might find in a real Qin military structure. The team studying the pit believed they had uncovered a representation of a battlefield in miniature frozen in clay led by an elite command. But there was something else about Pit 2 that was even more troubling. Soil samples taken from the site revealed elevated levels of toxic materials. Not just mercury, but arsenic compounds and strange mineral deposits not native to the region. At first, scientists thought this was the result of natural contamination or even preservation techniques. But when cross-referenced with similar samples from other parts of the necropolis, a pattern began to emerge. It wasn't just the tomb that was surrounded by poison. It was the army itself. Researchers began to suspect that the entire outer zone may have been engineered with deterrence in mind, not to honor the dead, but to warn off the living. The air quality around some dig zones, especially during the hotter months, fluctuated in dangerous ways. Workers reported dizziness, nosebleeds, and fatigue. Some had to be hospitalized. Authorities downplayed the incidents, attributing them to heat or stress. But internal reports told a different story. Meanwhile, satellite imaging and ground-penetrating radar continued to expose new pockets of structures beneath the earth. Unmapped corridors, sealed chambers, hollow vaults with shapes that didn't match known formations. One area east of Pit 3 appeared to hold a grid of underground rooms lined up like bunkers with metallic signatures that couldn't be explained. Yet, none of them had been opened. Despite the growing pile of data, Chinese officials remained cautious. The public narrative stayed the same. The emperor's tomb would not be opened until technology was advanced enough to prevent damage. But the truth was far less reassuring. What archaeologists and scientists were learning in real time was that they might be dealing with more than just an ancient tomb. They might be looking at a massive, carefully constructed trap. One researcher privately described it as a deadly museum, a place that wasn't just meant to preserve history, but to punish anyone who dared to disturb it.